A world wild and fragile, vibrant and untamed. Grand Pulse.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today I'm doing the unthinkable. I hated Final Fantasy 13, so this has been a real challenge for me, but at the very least you can trust that everything I say has gone through about 20 hate filters before I decided it was valid. Let's take a look at why Final Fantasy 13 isn't that bad. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Exhausting versus bad.
Wait, but I don't get it.
I'm going to start off with an entry that isn't actually about anything in particular, it's just more of a realization, an observation, a filter I had to apply mentally to take the game in objectively. And it's the realization that the game isn't so much a bad game, it's actually just an exhausting game, which is an important distinction. The game strips away a lot of traditional Final Fantasy pacing tools. No bustling towns, barely any NPC chatter, no goofy minigames to let you breathe. It's just forward momentum that's almost non-stop. And although for me this felt like a weakness, I guess it can be a strength, and for fans of this game, it was. The cast is basically on the run the entire time, so the relentless structure kind of mirrors their situation. There's no time to relax because they don't get to relax. Still, other entries have told similar fugitive stories and managed to sneak in lighter moments or diversions without breaking immersion, so who's to say? Me. They could have done it. Okay, let's say some nice things without backhanded compliments.
She's waiting there, ain't she? Your lovely bride-to-be?
Worldbuilding.
And they're fal'Cie, our enemies of the state. Tell a soldier to kill an enemy, and you really think it's gonna matter what uniform he's wearing?
The whole fal'Cie idea grabs you immediately. You're branded, given a mission you barely understand, and doomed no matter what choice you make. That's such a sharp narrative engine because the conflict isn't just emotional, it's baked into the rules of the world itself. Cocoon's society reacting with fear to anything linked to Pulse actually makes sense too. It mirrors real-life panic responses without stopping to preach about them. Then you've got the fal'Cie looming overhead, these distant, godlike system operators who keep civilization running but feel zero attachment to the people living in it. That's deliciously inventive sci-fi, and exactly what Final Fantasy is good at. It turns the story into a fight against infrastructure, not just some mustache-twirling villain. Even if someone isn't sold on how the plot delivers its info, the foundation is undeniably strong.
You know how to fly this?
Yeah, I think so.
The Crystarium progression is the tutorial. People love to rag on poor man's sphere grid, but the Crystarium's tight leash is actually doing some smart behind the scenes work. Because it limits how fast you can grow, the game can balance fights with surgical precision. You're not accidentally steamrolling bosses because you stumbled into some game-breaking spell at level 12. Instead, your strength ramps up in a way that feels fair. New roles unlock, stats climb, tactics expand. It feels less like random power spikes and more like learning a system properly. Then, when the restrictions finally loosen, it's satisfying because you actually understand what each role does and why each role matters. The layout helps too. It's clean, it's readable, and it rewards you often enough to feel progress without turning character building into spreadsheet duty. Maybe the training wheels stay on a bit too long, but they're definitely more handy than hurtful. The soundtrack.
Here.
I'm so glad I don't have to defend this one. Final Fantasy 13 absolutely weaponizes its soundtrack, and honestly, it might be the game's secret MVP. The music does heavy lifting that dialogue sometimes doesn't, instantly communicating what is happening before a character even opens their mouth. Often communicating better than when the characters open their mouths. Its blend of sweeping orchestral pieces and slick electronic elements fits the sci-fi fantasy tone perfectly, making every scene feel bigger than whatever hallway you're stuck in. That matters, because when environments are structured linearly, sound is what gives each chapter its own identity. Great game music is basically invisible storytelling, and it does a lot of heavy lifting in this game.
Making a wish, huh? What'd you wish for?
Well, you're never happy. You never smile.
Aesthetic and art design. Whether you vibe with its tone or you don't, Final Fantasy XIII absolutely knows what it wants to look like. And it's such a shame the game was destroyed globally, because had its other elements been stronger, its style would have been remembered probably to this day. Cocoon's polished, futuristic sheen plays perfectly against Pulse's wild, ancient landscapes, giving visual context to all the themes you'd seen up until this point. The character designs pop instantly as well. Lightning's outline alone is so distinct it may as well be branding. Even the menus and UI feel intentional, sleek, techy, and fully in sync with the world instead of floating on top of it. Say what you want about the game, its design is cohesive, really cohesive.
A dead end. But we were at least going to see where the road would take us. The search for a home, buried in the past, and the faintest glimmer of hope.
The game released at the wrong time.
The 13 days after we awoke were the beginning of the end.
Another entry like our first, this isn't so much an assessment on why it's not bad, but why we were so hard on it. After waiting so long for Final Fantasy XIII, expectations weren't just high, they were flying over the world map. So when the first few chapters didn't match the grand vision people had built in their heads, many players basically declared Judgment Day early. It also launched at a weird turning point for the industry when AAA gaming was starting to lean into annual releases, aggressive DLC models, and a more mass-produced feel, which made audiences extra suspicious of anything that didn't instantly catch the brain. Dropping a heavily guided opening in that climate was pretty much a death sentence. Players needed instant return, and Final Fantasy XIII is absolutely not that. Compared to the openness players remembered from the start of other Final Fantasy entries, 13's earlier linearity felt like a hard pivot, especially with fewer towns, fewer shops, and wandering spaces to decompress in. It just honestly didn't feel like Final Fantasy. The Paradigm Combat System.
No daydreaming now.
Final Fantasy XIII can feel like it's on autopilot pretty early until the combat system pulls off its mask and reveals a surprisingly sharp tactical grin. Paradigm shifting isn't just swapping roles, it's complete management of the battlefield. You decide when to sprint the stagger gauge, when to brace for a boss's scripted nuke, and when to dump damage like you're cashing out chips at a casino. Because commands queue, skill lives in prediction, and then reaction. Look, it's different, I understand, but every Final Fantasy game needs to have a different take on the battle system. And Final Fantasy XIII might be different, but it's also lots of fun. The design turns battles into an almost flow state. When it finally clicks, fights feel less like turn-based routines and more like spinning plates while dodging punches. It's pretty epic.
Change is good, Pops.
Battle Restart. I was crediting the game for this back at release, and it was always going to be on this list. One of Final Fantasy XIII's smartest quality of life flexes is how fast it lets you jump back into a fight. Lose? Cool. Retry instantly, no loading screens, no jogging down the same hallway like you're stuck in a fitness montage nobody asked for. That design quietly dulls the pain of failure, and not in a way that feels cheap or too easy, just less painful, which isn't a bad thing. You can test a risky paradigm setup, watch it explode, tweak it, and dive back in. That's perfect for a system built on tactics and timing, because experimentation stops feeling scary and starts feeling encouraged, and dare I say, fun. Final Fantasy XIII shows that despite what people think, it respects your time and your curiosity. Some players argue that fear of death is what makes it fun, but how many times can you hear there's no way you're taking Kairi's heart before you hurl your PS2 into a wall? Lightning.
Hey, that wasn't like a challenge now, all right? Hey!
Lightning might be the best part of Final Fantasy XIII. She stands out because she's not your typical sunshine and group hugs RPG lead. She's disciplined, guarded, a soldier persona holding herself together while everything underneath starts to fracture. That tension is what makes her interesting. You can literally watch the stress lines form, her need for control tightening, her emotions getting boxed up. She's a nice throwback to Cloud, to Squall. She's cool, and that's cool. She isn't strong just because the script says so. She's strong because she's built herself that way to survive, and the story keeps poking at what happens when that armor stops working. Maybe what everyone says is true.
A world wild and fragile, vibrant and untamed. Grand Pulse.
Everyone's heard the running gag. When Final Fantasy XIII opens up, it becomes a different beast. And yes, the meme exists because it really does take about 25 hours, which sounds like a hostage situation disguised as pacing. But once it happens, the shift is undeniable. Hunts appear, optional monsters start stomping around like they own the postcode, and suddenly you've got room to experiment with builds and paradigm combos instead of marching through tutorial corridors. This is where the combat finally flexes because you're not learning systems anymore. The focus flips from advanced plot to solve fights, and that's the arena where the game shines brightest. And even though it's become a meme about how ludicrous it is to have to wait 25 hours for a game to get good, it does technically get good after 25 hours, and it's the best excuse for why Final Fantasy XIII isn't that bad. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.